And then often there are also psychotic symptoms between the two of those. But the impulsive behavior can happen in both disorders. Hi, this is Jim Brillon. Welcome to our YouTube channel where we talk about all things mental health. The topic I wanted to talk about today is something I've had some questions about from different people, and that is the difference between bipolar disorder and borderline personality. Those two diagnoses are sometimes misdiagnosed, and there are some similarities between the two that are sometimes confusing for people. They're actually two very different issues. Bipolar disorder is a form of a depressive disorder, whereas borderline personality is a personality disorder that also operates on a continuum. So many people can have traits of borderline personality without having a full, complete diagnosis. But some of the features that are common that often confuse people are things like dysphoria. In other words, feeling just a general unease and dissatisfaction, unhappiness in life. And also what looks like hyperactivity can be driven by two very different causes, but it's a common feature between the two. And also impulsivity. People can be highly impulsive and acting out with a very highly reactive stance. And also suicidality is often common between the two. It could be threats of suicide or suicidal thoughts, not necessarily attempts. And then often there are also psychotic symptoms between the two of those, where people will experience things like paranoia, delusions. They might have even hallucinations, auditory or visual hallucinations. Some people, including a lot of experts, believe that there is a direct connection between the two disorders, but frankly, I haven't seen a lot of hard evidence of that, though sometimes borderline personality disorder is thought of as very rapidly cycling bipolar disorder. But to tease out the two, bipolar disorder shows up with people with mood shifts that switch from depression to mania or elevated moods, and they're characterized often by elation or really high moods. Not always. There's a difference between that presentation, which we think of as bipolar 1, and bipolar 2, which doesn't have the high elated manic states. There's a decreased need for sleep and increased activity, or sometimes hypomania, so they don't get extremely high moods. Borderline personality disorder is more associated with mood changes and emotional dysregulation, and they might go from feeling fine to extremely depressed in minutes, whereas mood shifts with bipolar disorder are more slow to come on and they last longer. But the impulsive behavior can happen in both disorders. Really, the differences in teasing out the two disorders comes down to the qualities, the time, the causes, and the degrees. So the qualities in bipolar disorder is mania and depression. With bipolar disorder, it's intense emotional pain and emptiness, often anger and feelings of hopelessness, loneliness, and desperation. As far as the time, with borderline personality disorder, the mood shifts are shorter in duration. They might last for hours at a time. With bipolar disorder, the mood shifts might last days or weeks. Mood swings with bipolar disorder tend to happen spontaneously, and there's no apparent cause or trigger for them. The pattern isn't as clear as with borderline personality, where you can see that a word or an action triggered an episode. So when we talk about degrees, mood swings with borderline personality disorder rarely involve the elation that a manic state with bipolar disorder will involve. And bipolar disorder looks more like grandiosity, elevated mood. Again, some of the common features that make things confusing for people are the emotional dysregulation, the impulsivity, also cognitive issues, and unstable, intense relationships. With borderline personality disorder, those patterns are more consistent over time. Existentially, there are questions to look at also. There are feelings of emptiness and worthlessness, struggle with self-image, and fear of abandonment with borderline personality disorder. The chaotic relationships are generally attributed to different things in the two disorders. So with borderline personality, the relationship problems are really one of the primary sources of their suffering. With bipolar disorder, the relationship problems are the unfortunate consequence of behaviors and of the disorder. And when there are psychotic features, they're shorter without the delusional thoughts with borderline personality disorder. And people tend to have a little more insight. In other words, they know that something's wrong. They know that they're not thinking clearly. With bipolar disorder, those mood episodes last longer and they're really less able to reflect on their behaviors. So there's less level of insight. So I hope this is helpful in helping to differentiate a little bit between the two disorders. I think it's confusing for a lot of people, especially when many people think of the two disorders as somewhere on a spectrum. If the videos are helpful, I encourage you to like and subscribe, sign up for notifications so you can find out when there's more material coming out, and feel free to leave comments, and I do check those and can answer some questions for you. So until next time, take care of yourselves.